We can't reduce foods to just merely their macronutrients. They're so much more than that. But carbs are not inherently bad. Okay, so when people say I'm going to be ketogenic or carnivore forever, carbs themselves, like I said in the beginning, are not inherently bad. The mindset and the words you use are very important when doing this. Don't say I'm bringing carbs back into my life. Don't say that. Food also gives seasonal signals, circadian and hormonal regulation.
Welcome to the Hot Takes and Hard Truths podcast, where we believe in unfiltered health, healing with real food, and unapologetic freedom that can only be achieved through the salvation of Jesus Christ. Your hosts, Jen and Nora, are close friends who found each other online despite the constant noise within the healthy living social media space. Their passion for natural health and Jesus, and their penchant to lean into the hard topics of the day, led them to want to share their thoughts and ideas with others who are also in search for meaning and answers. Please welcome your hosts, Jen and Nora.
Today, we're going to dive into one of the most misunderstood topics in the nutrition world, and that is the macronutrient of carbohydrates. It's been hot in the news lately because of the sugar fasting and things like that. So I really wanted to address that and address carbohydrates and who can benefit from it. How do you reintroduce it if you've been carb-free for so long? Why would you want to reintroduce carbs? Are all carbs equal? All those kind of things. And here's the thing, like I've been low-carb ketogenic for a long time, and I didn't think I was dogmatic, but apparently I was.
Me too.
because I was because I was like, this is the way everybody should live. And then once you start letting go of the dogma a little bit, you can start seeing the bigger picture. So carbs are really blamed for like a lot of things, from PCOS, diabetes, bloating. Some people are like, oh my gosh, I had this, fill in the blank carb and I bloated like crazy. So I'm not supposed to have carbs.
But not all carbs are created equal. And that's what you are going to break down for us. So I'm going to be asking you a bunch of questions today. I'm going to be learning a ton. You viewers are going to be learning a lot as well. So excited to dive into all things carbs and how they can be beneficial for our bodies.
Yeah, for sure. And I've actually not talked a lot on social media the past year about this because I was experimenting and I didn't want to say something and then later on take it back and then people not hear it. But over the past year, at least, I've been slowly reintroducing carbs back in just to experiment. And it's been going well. It's been going very well. And I've continued to bring in carbs. So first, let me say, before we dive into any questions and explanations, what do I mean by a carb? Because a lot of people, when they hear the word carb, they think of Pop-Tarts and donuts and candy. And that's not what I'm talking about.
Is refined carbs, is that a good?
Yeah, I mean, ultra-processed
Ultra-processed.
foods.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what usually people think of when they hear the word carbs. And that's not what I'm saying. What I mean, and a better term would be carb-rich foods or whole foods that have primarily carbs in them versus the other two macronutrients. So your squashes, your potatoes, your carrots, your onions, things like that have more carbs than protein fats. Or fruits especially, right? There's more carbs than protein and fat in most fruits, I should say. So bringing those back in and what the difference it's made in my life. And I don't know exactly what order this episode will be. It might become a two-parter because I have a lot to say on this topic after this past year, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So,
and I'm excited.
All right.
I just started wearing a CGM today because I've been introducing whole carbs in. So that will be fun on our next episode about this. I can update with how healthy whole carbs are affecting my body after being meat-based for so long. So
yeah, for
neat
sure.
to bring in a little data. Yeah.
So what was the first question you had? And then we'll dive right in.
Why do people react poorly to carb-rich foods?
Okay. So a lot of people when they find out they're diabetic or they're having PCOS symptoms and any type of insulin resistance related disease,
Mhm.
right? They immediately blame it on the carbs. But the problem is there's already like some sort of inflammation, something else that caused the insulin resistance. It's not the carb macronutrient itself. It's what else was with it. Because you look ancestrally, and not just ancestrally actually. I'm gonna back up on that term. You look at people over the past 200 years ish, they were having toast, eggs, and bacon for breakfast. They were having certain types of carbohydrates with their meals and they weren't overly obese. Like when we see those pictures of people in the 40s and 50s in their bathing suits on the beach and everybody's thin, they were having
Yes.
carbohydrates. So but what I believe is the carbohydrates, once you have that disease, the carbohydrates, you're not tolerating them well. So if you remove them, then you can work on like the underlying issue.
Mhm.
So why do people react poorly? Blood sugar dysregulation is the number one. When you have fast digesting, low fiber carbohydrates, that can lead to a sharp glucose spike, which then can be followed by a crash, and you have this hypoglycemic roller coaster going
Could
on.
that be due to
And
the ultra processed carbs? Is that what you're saying?
well, well, when you say do, is it like what initially caused it? Because once you have that disease, a carb is a carb, whether you're eating potatoes or
Okay, your body
Doritos,
can
right?
tell the
Or
difference.
yeah, right,
Okay.
like you still have your blood is just overloaded with glucose in the red blood cells, and this leads to the next part about insulin resistance, the second reason why people react poorly to the carbs, because the cells throughout your body are becoming resistant to insulin
Okay.
signaling. You're no longer insulin sensitive. So when you're shuttling this glucose into your body, usually insulin is secreted from your pancreas and it shuttles the glucose from the blood supply into things like your liver or your muscles. But when those get full, your glycogen stores are full, it either stays in the blood or goes into fat cells. So when there's the resistance, that's what's happening. But then going low carb keto, it helps to get rid of all of that excess and it brings insulin down, which helps to get rid of the fat as well. What we're going to get to later on in this episode is, do you need to do this forever? Right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the bottom line. Do you need to stay carnivore, keto, low carb forever? But that's going to be later. We need to build up to that.
Yeah.
So insulin resistance, the second thing, the muscle, liver, and fat cells, they're not responding efficiently to insulin. So after that carb intake, glucose is remaining elevated longer. The pancreas has to overproduce insulin. That can make you more tired. It can make you have reactive hypoglycemia. It can increase inflammation. It can feed hunger and cravings. So all those kind of things. Now, the other thing is poor metabolic flexibility. We hear a lot about this term now. That is the ability to switch between fat and carbs for fuel. So and I say we, meaning myself, was thinking for the longest time, fat is the ideal way to burn fuel. And yes, it's great, but having that flexibility is a better sign of health to be able to switch back and forth. And I'll tell you, I don't have it here. I think it's in the bathroom. I've been playing around with my Lumen device
Mhm.
that tells you what you're burning, fat or carbs. And since I've been having things like oatmeal, a good quality oatmeal, sourdough bread, fermented vegetables, and almost all the fruit I want.
The gut healthy stuff, right?
The gut healthy stuff, yeah. Since I've been doing that, I have finally been blowing in the lumen, showing I am fat burning with an occasional carb one. The days I'm not moving as much, I do have more carb burning, but like you blow into this lumen device before you eat, it tells you on a scale of 1 to 5 where you're at on carb burning, or fat burning is a 1, carb is a 5, where you fall. Before the meal, I'm typically like a 1 to 3. I'll have the meal and then I'll blow it again 2 hours later. And I'd say about 80% of the time, I'm back to a 2 or 3
Wow.
by the end, which is pretty dang good. There's been an occasional time before bed that I did blow a 5, like I'm burning carbs before bed, but it didn't affect me negatively. Like I didn't have poor sleep or, I haven't gained weight. I've been pretty steady, give or take 1 to 2 pounds this whole time, which I feel like whatever diet you're on, you're going to have
That's
that.
expected. Yeah.
So yeah, exactly. So that's what's been it's been interesting. Oh, where I was gonna go was I had one day, let me do a keto day. Let me do like a strict, actually, I think it was pretty carnivore. I think I had broccoli with dinner. That was the only non-carnivore thing. That night that was the night I was burning a 5 for
Wow.
carbs. And the next morning I woke up, it was like a 4 or a 5 burning carbs as well.
Interesting.
So it is, and I don't know fully what to take of it yet, but it's just interesting data to look at that my body is more flexible now, where I can
Resilient.
have like this morning. Yeah, this morning we made French toast with sourdough. Do you know how many years it's been since I've
No.
had French with real maple syrup? And I don't drench it, but I blew a 2 in my lumen. 2 hours later, I was back at a 2 again.
Wow.
I was fine.
So your body's
Yeah, and it
resilient,
was just
and that shows what good metabolic health is that.
yeah, because yeah, and I'm not sitting on my butt after eating. I'm walking around, I'm doing stuff, so I'm burning that fuel. But as soon as the carbs are burned, my body knows to switch back to fat. And that's the key. It's going back and forth. That's why I say like 1.5 to 2 hours later, see where it's at. So the metabolic flexibility is a big game changer as well. And then I have 2 more things for that
Okay.
question. So another reason that can cause the people to react poorly to carb rich foods is gut imbalance. And this is the biggest one I'm finding is things like gut dysbiosis, candida, SIBO, opportunistic pathogens that are overgrown in the gut, those kind of things. So when you have fiber rich foods, it's going to feed the bacteria in your gut, good or bad.
Okay.
So if you have some bad bacteria in there and you're taking fibrous foods, it's going to cause pain, it's going to cause discomfort and gas and all those kind of things. You heal that and then you can tolerate the plant foods better. That's one way too. People, if they're having fermentable vegetables and it's causing those GI symptoms, that's another sign there's some imbalance in there, some dysbiosis we need to address.
Because usually they would be very beneficial. They're supposed to be.
Correct. Yes, and they are, but if you don't have enough beneficial bacteria to feed them,
Okay.
then you're going
Negative
to have
effect.
problems. Yeah, so this is where I'm trying to get at is it's not necessarily a carb issue. We can't reduce foods to just merely their macronutrients. There's so much more than that. And I have a whole spiel I want to talk about that. But I'm trying to stay in order. I'm trying to stay in order on this one. So, but one other thing you and I have talked about too, number 5, is the food quality and the
Ah,
context. So yeah, the food intolerances could be things like nightshades, oxalates, lectins, things like that. It could be poor preparation. Maybe you tolerate cooked and steamed better than you tolerate raw. That's my case. I can't do raw vegetable. I don't feel great. Maybe you have a lack of digestive enzymes or bile, especially if you don't have a gallbladder. Maybe the glyphosates and the toxins, that's where I was going to get at, that you and I have discussed a lot with the wheat in America and all the grains. So that's a fifth one there.
okay. Everything's sprayed, which is going to affect our gut, which is going to mean that we can't absorb or handle these carbs as well as we should.
Right.
So, next one, why does carb restriction work, especially for insulin resistance?
And this is kind of what we talked about a little bit, right? So when we lower the insulin demand and we have fewer carbs, there's less insulin secreted, and you can bring that fasting insulin down. It gives the pancreas a break and helps lower that chronic hyperinsulinemia that's occurring. And it can be helpful for weight loss. It can be helpful, even resistance training and sleep and cortisol regulation. It can be helpful for those things. It also stabilizes the blood sugar. It shifts the metabolism towards fat burning. So if you've been insulin resistant so long and eating carbs all the time, your body doesn't realize that it can shift over to that fat burning mode. So when you do restrict the carbs, it trains the body to be able to burn fat and ketones more efficiently, and this can improve the energy levels, the brain function, reduce cravings, and that kind of thing. So I could get into more science of this, but that's kind of the basic 101 of it.
Okay. And after you've restricted those carbs, do you need to eat low carb forever?
This is where it gets interesting. So I don't know about you if you've noticed this in the space. I think you have because we've talked about it. But we tend to celebrate restriction in the sense of it's my 10th year not eating any of these other foods. And I'm not discussing like junk foods, right? Like obviously we want to restrict the stuff that's absolutely not good for us whatsoever. But it's just an interesting mentality, and I know for some people that's how they feel good right now, and that's okay. I'm not dissing those people. But what I worry about is that everybody else who follow them on social media finds that that is going to be their success and their win is once they stay this way of eating forever. Carnivore, vegan, keto, whatever it is. And then they say, oh, I fell off the wagon, I had this food, and then I need to get back on. My question would be, if you fell off the wagon and had the food, did anything negative happen? Did you gain the weight? Did you have crappy sleep? Did you get irritable? Like,
Any symptoms after that food?
yeah,
Pay attention.
you don't have to be dogmatic. And the thing is, like, these one of my friends who's been doing the sugar diet for a bit, she had said this is the way she's eating right now. She's doing more low fat, high carb, and she feels really good. And she said, I don't want anyone to follow me just because I'm doing this. Like, we have different stages in our lives for different ways of eating.
Mhm.
You know, sometimes we might feel better low carb, keto. Sometimes we might feel better with more carb. And the best part is that flexibility of being able to switch back and forth.
That
So,
resilience.
long as exactly. Yeah. So the short answer is no. But the long answer is as long as you've done the work, then you can, you don't have to be low carb forever. So, what's the work look like? Insulin resistance being reversed. Weight loss going down, increasing muscle mass is a really big one because muscle sucks in the glucose into glycogen, storage glucose. So increasing muscle mass, reducing liver fat, anti-inflammatory nutrition, making sure your blood sugar's stable. It doesn't have to be a flat line like you're dead. You can have little bumps. You can have a spike here and there. It's just as long as it comes back to baseline.
Okay.
That's the but carbs are not inherently bad. Okay, so when people say I'm going to be ketogenic or carnivore forever, carbs themselves, like I said in the beginning, are not inherently bad. Whole food carbs, your fruits, your roots, your squashes, your honey, etc., they all contain more than just carbohydrates.
And just to
Yeah,
clarify, we are not talking about processed carbs here. Now, which
right. Whole food.
yeah, we are talking about whole food carbs, not the multi-ingredient carbs.
Correct. Things that you can grow in your garden or get at your farmer's market, those type of situations. So they have more than just carbohydrates. They have minerals, they have fiber, they have phytonutrients. So let me back up a second. The minerals like potassium, magnesium, right? Avocado is a rich source of potassium. Fiber is important for helping the gut microbiome, the beneficial bacteria to grow. Phytonutrients have antioxidants and hormone modulation. Food is also, this is a big one that's been spoken about lately, is it gives seasonal signals, circadian and hormonal regulation because it contains light, and when you consume it in your body, it's giving signals of what season it's in. So ancestrally, in the winter, we were more prone to fast and be more of a ketogenic animal based diet. Summer, there's plenty of fruit. So it's giving that signal of like, do you store fat or do you burn fat? So there's that aspect.
And I'm starting to get into this. I can't wait to dive more in August when I have more time. But now about squashes. Squashes are usually fall and winter, and those are more heavier carbs. That's when we do the stews and the soups. Sweater weather.
Yeah,
It's
exactly. Except here in Arizona, but
hot.
yeah.
But I was thinking, that's still going with the circadian rhythm, even though they're a little heavier in carbs, because then berries are lighter for the summer, fewer carbs.
Yeah, because the circadian rhythm's not focused on carbs.
Okay.
It's focused on what do you
Okay.
grow,
Yeah, yeah,
seasonal eating. That's what it is. What can grow in your area that you don't need shipped over to you through a plane or boats or whatever it
yeah. Okay.
is, and trucks and stuff. So, like right now, berries are just finishing up here
Mhm.
in Arizona.
Same here.
And it's yeah, it's more of a citrusy time and watermelon and all those kind of things. So seasonal eating is basically what that
Okay.
means. Well, you can find these graphics anywhere around online. There's like websites you type in your zip code and you can see what is grown seasonally for your
Your
climate
zone.
in
It's
that
the
area.
zones.
Your
Yes.
zone. That's what it is. Thank you. So yeah, like when there's some carnivore, and I'm picking on the carnivores because they're the ones not eating the carbs, right? Some of them, when they're trying to reintroduce carbs, they'll stick to just one, like green beans or broccoli or whatever. But it's more than just the carb itself. So for example, beets. It's not just glucose. It has nitric oxide, it has folate, it has magnesium, it has color signals. There's a lot to it, more than just I need carbs.
Well-rounded nutrients that our bodies need.
Exactly. So I want to dive in a little bit if I can. I know I'm kind of taking the stage on this one. I'm
You're
sorry.
okay. You're the coach
Um,
here that knows more ins and outs, far more.
so yeah, because I want to dive into that whole thing about how carbs are more than just the food, the whole foods are more than just their macronutrients. So somebody might be asking, like, what is polyphenols? Like, what's the big deal about polyphenols and fiber and phytonutrients and stuff? So polyphenols, they have antioxidants and they help with microbiome issues. A lot of these are all the microbiome, which is our immune system as well. So we find polyphenols in things like berries, olives, cacao, green tea, certain herbs like cinnamon, cloves, I think cumin, if I remember correctly, curry, things like that. So a lot of them, you can still be keto and low carb with polyphenols. It's just a lot of times it ends up being focused on cheese and bacon instead of bringing in these other nutrients as well. So what they do is they act as substrates for the beneficial bacteria in our gut, like Akkermansia, Bifidobacteria, Lactobacillus. Akkermansia is a big one that helps with GLP-1 production and helps that satiety signal. And polyphenols feed that to help it grow properly.
It's another hot topic lately, these GLP-1s, and everyone's taking them. And this is another natural source where we can help our GLP-1 production with those berries and certain herbs and spices that you
So
suggested.
yeah, so indirectly because it's increasing Akkermansia, which helps with
Okay.
satiety. And so Akkermansia helps with satiety. It helps balance your metabolism properly. But if you don't have any Akkermansia, so I do gut testing. I did about 6 gut tests over the last 3 weeks with clients, and 2 of them had 0% Akkermansia. And this is a big key factor in why they're probably not losing weight and why they're always hungry as well. So that's what we're working on first before jumping into any GLP-1 stuff is let's increase your Akkermansia and get that to a balanced level.
And that's possible. You can do that naturally.
Oh,
Okay.
well, I mean, I have to give an Akkermansia probiotic, but
But okay.
yes. And
Be
then
a
we got to
simple
make
fix.
sure we're feeding Akkermansia. Just like a garden. If you have a garden and you plant some seeds and you just hope for them to grow, you got to feed the seeds. You got to get maybe some fertilizer. You got to have healthy soil. You can't just throw it in the dirt. You got to water it, get some sun. You got to do all the things necessary for that seed to grow properly. And so you can't just take probiotics and just hope for the best. Like it has to be very targeted and make sure. And then the prebiotics and the polyphenols and the fiber, all of those feed the beneficial and help them grow. But the other thing polyphenols do is it helps with like antimicrobial effects. So if you have opportunistic negative bacteria growing in your gut, those can help balance the gut ecosystem to fight against it. So when I say pro-inflammatory strains, I'm speaking of C. diff, E. coli, staph, streptococcus, those kind of things. And I find them in 90% of my clients. They have them
Wow.
because I tend to get mostly carnivores as my clients. So I'm like, hey, this is what's going on. This is what you got. Let's work on it. The second one, I'm going to zip through these so we can get moving on too. But fiber, prebiotics, if you use it strategically,
Okay.
it enhances carb tolerance. So it acts as a prebiotic, especially ones like inulin, pectin, resistant starch. Those all help feed the gut bacteria that produces that short chain fatty acid like acetate, butyrate, all of those kind of things. And those help with the colonocytes in your gut. So this is all like, it's its own ecosystem. It's complicated. And I'm throwing a lot of big words out there,
You are.
but it's like, it's more than just the carbs is what I'm getting
Okay.
at. It's a delicate ecosystem in our guts. That's not just if I get rid of all the carbs, I'll be better. It's so much more than that.
Can you give an example of those beneficial fibers that you had just the long words that you had just mentioned? What are some foods that
Yeah. So like the inulin, the
Yes,
pectin,
yes,
the resistant
yes.
starch. Yeah. So the pectin is very common in
Okay.
fruits, your apples, your pears, your oranges. That's a very common one. So you hear you can buy pectin separately as well. So for inulin, artichoke,
Oh,
asparagus, garlic, leeks, onions, oats, bananas, those are all common ones. And again, some of these, if you're insulin resistant, you're not going to do the bananas for now until so these are just a variety of ones. Depending on where you are on that healing spectrum, you can incorporate. You can incorporate fresh, and they have to be fresh. So not like your powdered garlic. You got to cut up the garlic, put it in. And then the polyphenols, you can find those in a lot of foods, a lot of fruits and vegetables, your apples, berries, broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, but a lot of herbs and spices have them too. So celery seeds, cinnamon, cloves. What else is there? Peppermint, parsley, basil. And then we also have cacao, flaxseed, so your dark chocolate, your olives, your olive oil, all of those are rich in polyphenols. And I have to say, I remember my early days of keto and hearing some people say polyphenols are good for you. And then I'd hear the others say, yeah, you don't need polyphenols. It's fine. Like, blah, blah. And it was just so interesting to me that like I sided with the like, what, I'm feeling great just eating these foods. So what the heck? But there is another story there as to what happened to me when I did not feed my good bacteria. And it was a downhill spiral. But if I tell that story right now, it'll take too long. The phytonutrients, that's the last one. Those are nutrient signals that calm the gut and the immune system. So those are things like sulforaphane, which is in cruciferous vegetables, quercetin. We hear a lot about that over the past few
yes.
years. That's in apples and onions, curcumin. All of these are very helpful in anti-inflammation and immune modulation. So, and then quercetin, this is something I've been getting into a lot lately, is that it helps to stabilize mast cells and it modulates the release of histamine. So, there's a lot of carnivores who end up having histamine intolerance because meat has high amount of histamine, especially when you eat leftovers. pretty much the whole diet. And that's what happened to me. And now it's taking a long time to balance that out, especially perimenopause with estrogen going all over the place. There's that connection there. So quercetin's been a big one for me, trying to find quercetin rich foods. Like I've just been doing apples and supplement, to be completely honest. So I want to tie this all together. So you originally had asked how, like, why does low carb work for insulin resistance? All of this with the gut health ties and connects to carb tolerance, because if your gut is inflamed or dysbiotic, there's carb fermentation, which causes gas, bloating, spikes, crashes. We could have leaky gut, which is the immune response to foods, and that causes blood sugar instability. If you have low short chain fatty acids, that impairs insulin signaling. So all of this is where gut health, it's not just about getting rid of the carbs or like, there's some electrolytes that have like 1 or 2 grams of carbs in it, and it's just, you don't need to get rid of that last little bit. You need to probably work on gut health. It's going to be a big part of it.
For like 95% of Americans, right?
Probably, yeah, especially after eating so many inflammatory ultra processed foods that are gut disrupting, and then on top of it all the antibiotics and medications and NSAIDs and stuff we've inundated our body with. It doesn't just naturally grow back. If you have, again, going back to the garden analogy, if you have weeds growing next to your tulips and you spray the whole thing, the tulips are going to suffer, if not die, right? You're spraying the whole thing trying to get rid of the weeds. So it's kind of the same thing. Things that you're doing to your gut and it's killing the bad, it's also going to kill the good. It doesn't always kill all of the good, but it's going to kill a good amount.
Okay. So we found out that we don't necessarily have to eat low carb forever. So who should consider adding carbs back in, and how do we do it right?
All right. So the number one person I find that benefits from reintroducing carbohydrates back into their diet is if you've been doing ketogenic, and I'm not even going to say low carb necessarily, because low carb technically is under 100 grams of carbs. But if you've been doing carnivore or keto for too long and you have hormonal imbalances you're still suffering from, so I'm talking low progesterone, missing periods, insomnia, mood swings, anxiety, your luteal phase of your cycle, meaning the day after ovulation until the day before your period, is supposed to be a good steady length, somewhere between 11 to 16 days. If yours is too short, that's another sign. Why? Because progesterone is supported by stable blood sugar and adequate carbs. The other thing is, the bottom line of all the ones I'm going to list besides women with hormonal imbalances is that it's a constant stressor. So if you have any type of constant stress, whether, and when I mention stress, people automatically go to mental, like, oh, this person's stressing me out, I'm going to flip out. But there's perceived stress the body is under at times too. So if you're doing keto too long, again, I'm not against keto, I'm not against carnivore. Some days I have a full carnivore day just because that's the way the day fell. But if you're doing it too long,
Cause stress on the body.
correct, it can. And I need to emphasize this because there are some long-term carnivores out there that are probably going to come after and be like, I've done it for 7 years, 10 years. And it's like, I don't know your whole story on Instagram, so I can't say one way or another. But for some of us, it can, for sure. I was one of those. I know you've been one of those with chronic stress, all the things you've gone through. So bringing carbs in can be really helpful. The other people that can benefit is chronic overfasters and undereaters. If you do OMAD consistently as a female, drinking coffee all the time before breakfast, or you've been just under eating too long, if you have cold extremities, hair loss, poor sleep, you're waking up between 2 and 3 a.m. every single day, those are signs you may benefit from some carbs.
And how about the adrenals and thyroid? That's another big one, isn't it?
Yes, I will jump to that one. I was going to mention real quick too, the athletic women, people who are lifting weights, that's a really important one too, but it'll kind of dive into the adrenal part also. So women who have thyroid and adrenal dysfunction, this person right here, I've always had, even before keto, when I went digging in my lab work, my free T3, which is your active thyroid hormone, has always been just on the cusp of conventional okay range. Like it starts at 2.0 and mine's always been 2.0, 2.0, even though I showed so many signs of thyroid issues. Doing ketogenic, it stayed 2.0, 2.0, 1.9, 2.0, it'd go back and forth. Bringing carbs back in, I'm at a 2.7. Optimally, functionally, you want 3 to 4 or 3 to 5, I'm sorry.
Wow.
So it's in the right
You're
direction.
getting there.
Yeah, and I can feel it. I have way less hair loss. I have better energy. If you have low cortisol output or you're burnout from chronic stress, carbs help to stimulate the conversion of T4, thyroid hormone T4, to T3, and they support adrenal resilience. Okay, we hear that. I know I've heard it. Other people know about it, but how does this actually happen? Like, what's the science of it? So when we have too few carbs, we have slow T4 to T3 conversion. When your insulin is very low for extended period of times, when I say low, very low, I mean 1 to 2 for extended period of time, your body lowers T3 output and you're not getting as much. T3 again is the active one that goes to all the cells and, communicates all the things we need and is needed for hormones as well. Insulin is needed in healthy amounts to support this conversion as well. So when your insulin is too low too long, that conversion is not going to happen properly. What happens is it ends up going, T4 converts into the inactive form called reverse T3. And so if you measure reverse T3 in your blood and it's higher than 15, you know that there's stress of some sort that you need to bring down to help that proper conversion happen.
Okay.
Many people just get put on thyroid medication. You've shared that was part of your story, versus how do we fix that conversion process instead of just here's another pill, right? Some people do need thyroid medication. Again, I'm not bashing these people. I'm just trying to help those who are like, I don't know if this is helping. And I want to get to, I don't like saying root cause because a lot of times there's many root cause, but
Wouldn't it be nice to fix it with food instead of a pill?
exactly. Yeah, if you can, 100%. Explore those opportunities. And then if you can't, yeah, then the pill is there for you. But you want to explore as many natural opportunities as possible. So another thing is that your liver plays a huge role in thyroid hormone production. So liver glycogen is really beneficial for the conversion of T4 to T3. And when your glycogen stores are depleted in ketogenic and extremely low carbon carnivore and extreme fasting, the liver shifts over into a stress mode. And that means there's less energy available for that T4 to T3 conversion. And then the adrenals, that's where this comes in, they're sensitive to the energy availability. And glucose is one of the easiest forms of quick energy when stress hits. So when you take the carbs and you bring them back into your diet, it's helping to reduce the cortisol output. It helps, especially when you have the carbs with salt and protein, the salts, the sodium and stuff, all of that helps to blunt that stress response.
So there's a lot of people that have been in fight or flight for so long and have burnout and suffer. Their adrenals are suffering. So adding in, can you is it safe to give a number of carbs, grams of carbs that could be beneficial for those of us that have this fight
Yeah,
or flight adrenal fatigue? Are you saying like 30 grams
that's a good question.
or
Yeah, I realized that that was the second half of your question. Like, how do you do it properly? How do you reintroduce the carbs? So it depends on the length of how long you've been bringing it down to like, and when I say keto, I should have said this in the beginning. Ketogenic is less than 20 grams of carbs. And there are carbs. I need to say this now. Sorry. It's totally off tangent of what you asked, but there are carbs in carnivorous foods. There are carbs in your eggs. There are carbs in your dairy. There are carbs in certain types of fish. If you have mussels, clams, those kind of things, I think oysters, there are carbs in there. So it's not that you're carb intolerant. Just saying. Because you're eating carbs in those forms. It's just that goes to show it's not just about bringing in the carbs, it's what else is with the carbs like we've been talking about. Okay. Now, how do you bring it in? So it depends on how long you've been doing it for.
Okay.
And it depends on what your goals are. We also want to make sure you're insulin sensitive. We want to check your labs, make sure your insulin's good, your glucose, your A1C, all those kind of things. So how do you do it? You're going to pick, there's a number of different ways to do it. The way I did it was I would pick 1 or 2 vegetables. I started with vegetables because I was too nervous about fruits back then. But you'd pick 1 or 2 vegetables, introduce them for a few days, monitor how you're feeling. I don't even worry about the macros, I would say. Just pick the types of food. So maybe you start with broccoli. See how you're doing. Green beans, the simpler ones that don't induce that fear of carbs, right? People are like, oh my gosh, I'm eating carbs, right? And I think shifting over a little bit, that brings to the other point is the mindset and the words you use are very important when doing this. Okay. Don't say I'm bringing carbs back into my life. Don't say that, because a lot of people who restrict carbs have this food addiction mentality, this sugar addiction mentality. And if they say that, they start going off and eating donuts and all the junk, right? So instead of saying I'm reintroducing carbs, try saying I'm bringing other whole foods into my diet that benefit my gut. I'm bringing whole foods in that help me to lower my cortisol. Like, it's just a simple mind shift verbiage thing, what you're telling yourself. Yeah. So you still have that restriction in a sense, but you're creating boundaries for yourself too, that you're not going to let yourself go haywire. So I wouldn't even worry about the macronutrients. Just do 1 or 2 carbs at a time. If you handle it well over 3 days, great. Let's say you had some broccoli and you had some gas. Well, how did you cook it? Did you have it raw? Did you steam it? Did you air fry it? All the different cooking methods also differ. So you can hear by what I'm saying, this could take a long time to bring the foods back in. And that's okay. It's a process. Like, if you've been restricting for a while, you need your body to readapt and start producing the enzymes and the insulin and all these things that help to balance all this out. So you can start with some of those kind of things, but you really want to pick the ones that you're not scared of the most, because if you have that fear, it's going to cause that blood sugar spike and cause it. Yes, exactly. And then you also want to do strategic timing. So you don't want to have a bolus of oatmeal and then go sit on your butt and edit a YouTube video for 2 hours, right? You want to try to do it like post-workout, or maybe go for a walk after you eat it. So the French toast we had this morning, it's too hot for a walk outside. I went on the treadmill for 20 minutes. And nice. That's most likely why I was still fat burning afterwards. I burned it off and it was great. So post-workout, some women can do it strategically with their cycle. They can luteal phase, they can add in more carbs and be more keto carnivore the first half of their cycle. You can do evening carbs to help lower cortisol. So some Greek yogurt with some berries or cherries before bed can be helpful for some people. And just making sure that you pair it with protein and fat. So if you're going from carnivore, don't go do the sugar fast. That's not going to work out for you. Your body's not adapted to that. It's just another stressor. You want to pair it together. Yeah. What was that?
Your body's going to revolt after.
Exactly. Yeah. It needs to be slow. It's just like if someone was vegan for a long time and brought in meat. Going straight from vegan straight to carnivore is not going to settle well in the gut. You need the digestive enzymes for protein and fat to come back to the factory to work. So, yeah, and just observe everything. Go slow and observe. Energy, bloat, mood, blood sugar, all those kind of things. And then as you notice like things are going okay, then you can bring in other ones and then just slowly introduce. Oh, one other really, really big factor is when you start bringing in starchy vegetables like your potatoes and things like that and the fruits, it's very important to bring the fat down. So don't be having potato with ribeye. Don't be dousing your ribeye with butter and then having like a big helping of rice and, all that stuff. It's that, like, if your fat's high, you can bring the carbs low. If your fat's low, you can bring the carbs high.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's that balance. It's a problem when both of them are elevated, which is the standard American diet. Your burger with fries,
Ah,
bun,
okay.
all of
So
that.
you would say
Because
like chicken and potatoes because that's going to be a
mhm,
lower fat meat with the starch, the carbs.
exactly, yeah. Rice and beans with like some shredded chicken kind of thing. Yeah. Beans is one that's like that's also one to be careful of the way you prepare it. I have not brought beans back in yet because I'm not just going to go buy canned
You want to
beans
soak
and
them, right? Isn't that
you want to soak them. It's a whole process and I'm not quite there yet. So, yeah.
so? I know a lot of people like to track their food if they're trying to lose weight. Some people do, me in particular. So, if we are tracking, how many grams of carbs per day do you suggest just starting off with so that we don't go off the deep end?
Yeah, so you don't want to go more than like 15 to 30 grams of carbs if you're zero carb, if you're carnivore. Okay, start out. That's a good area to start, and that's why I had mentioned like just pick one or two vegetables because you're not going to go over that, right? So you wouldn't necessarily have to track. You could just say, I'm going to have broccoli and green beans and try these out, and then they're good. But you don't want to do more than 15 to 30. Let your body adapt and make sure it's from real food, single ingredient food. And then, but yeah, you don't want to do like 100 grams and sugar. That's what I was saying. Like, you don't want to do the sugar fast straight from carnivore. It's not going to work out for you. But then also just be mindful of, I do believe food triggers are a real thing. For me, I can go forever eating my air fried French fries, sweet potato fries at home. I could be an endless bucket and keep eating those, a bottomless pit. But fruit, I can moderate. So just keeping that in mind, what are your trigger foods that have carbs in them and maybe steer clear of those.
Okay.
And that's why, again, back to the mindset of don't just say I'm bringing carbs back into my diet. You want to say I'm helping to refeed my microbiome. What is the goal of it? Right? Like, why are you bringing it in? And then frame it in your mind that way.
My whole
That's the
goal, for
key.
me at least, I wanted a healthy relationship with food, which I went carnivore for over a year because I wanted to do the healing, did the healing, but now I'm at this point, 5 years later, I want this healthy relationship. However, I know I have a sugar addiction. It's still there. It's always been there. It stems from my childhood, but like you said, what is our purpose of this? And berries for me are fully satisfying. And for some reason, they're able to calm any triggers, yet they're able to
Mm.
satisfy any cravings I might have had. So I've been on this berry kick. So I loved finding out that they are a polyphenol, which can help. Yep.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Yeah. No,
definitely
for sure.
keeping mind of your triggers, because if anyone understands triggers, that's definitely me. But just, I guess, testing the waters with, would you say, these lower glycemic index foods or lower carb foods can help? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, they can. Again, depending on where the person
Yeah.
is on the
Okay.
insulin resistance spectrum, like, yeah, you're going to want the lower glycemic ones. But if you've healed your insulin resistance and you've been insulin sensitive for a number of years, there's going to be a balance there too. Like, again, you can't just go to 100 grams. I heard someone give this analogy, and I think it's a really powerful one. Imagine your pancreas is this factory worker, right? And the insulin molecule, all the insulin molecules are the factory workers, okay? You always have a certain amount of insulin sitting there waiting for food to come for them to shuttle glucose to its proper destination. When you eat zero carb or extremely low carb for a long time, those factory workers that are just sitting there waiting for the food, the boss at the factory is like, there's no projects coming in. You guys can go. We don't need you anymore. That's part of how insulin lowers. Your fasting insulin goes down because of that. But if it happens too long and then you get to this insulin level of like 1 or 2, those standby factory workers are no longer there. And then you bring in a bolus of carbs, you're going to see blood sugar spikes. You're going to start feeling it a little bit. So that's why the dose is really important. The pancreas, the factory, needs to call in the workers again to sit on standby for when those projects come in, for when the carbs come in. So you need to kind of rebuild that again and do it slowly. And then eventually, yeah, those factory workers will be sitting there all the time because now you're bringing carbs in consistently. So, yeah, I guess like just pulling this all together just understands that reintroducing carbs isn't about undoing all your hard work. It's about expanding your nutrition in a way that honors your healing. And if your body is asking for more, you need to trust that and feed it with purpose. Don't stick with this phobia or this fear or a dogma that because this one way of eating worked, it has to be what works forever. It could have been beneficial for the time being, and it might be time to move on to another point. And so the carb restriction, it's a powerful tool for
Yeah.
healing. Don't get me wrong. It's really great, but it's not a permanent solution. And bringing in strategic, healthy, whole foods that have carbohydrates, we need to make sure your metabolism is ready. We need to make sure those are real foods. They support your hormones. They support adrenal issues. And then the last point is make sure you test and you don't guess. So you want to use data like fasting insulin, your CGM that you have so you can see what it's doing. Just if you're anybody like me, be careful if you get fixated on numbers. Yeah, and just paying attention to the energy and everything that it gives. So
Awesome. This has been very informative. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure everybody listening will learn a lot. So let us know in the comments if you have started introducing carbs or if you're scared to introduce carbs. Let us know where you're at in your journey.
yeah. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this with someone else that you know might be a little bit scared of some real foods that are grown from the earth that have carbohydrates in them.